Right, okay, folks, we're live. It's 3:00 Sunday, and welcome to the Workington Town webcast. I think this is about the 8th week now that we've done it, so we're getting no better, we're getting no more professional, but hopefully you're enjoying keeping in touch with players, ex-players, and friends of Workington Town as well. So I'll introduce our guests in a moment, but first of all, a couple of notices. Thank you to Castle and Robert Kirkbride, as usual, first on the virtual pints, probably about 9 o'clock this morning. I think they've got a bit of an issue, but we do appreciate it. Luke Riley, Scott Graham, ex-town coach and player Kebsey. Scott's doing a half-time draw for Kebsey. Over 1,000 tickets sold so far. The winner will win half of that, and Kebsey, a charity, will get the other half. So if you want to join in, it's the Derwent Park Supporters Club. Thank you to Scott Graham as usual. Tash for Town. So some lads who've been growing a moustache for Town, and Alan Murray's been doing, I think he's been doing a marathon every day. He posted this morning that he'd done a marathon this morning, which he does it for fun, which is a bit crackers to me. But they're selling wristbands at £5, only 100, limited edition. And if you buy one, you'll get entered into a draw for a 1996 signed rugby ball, Town versus Cass, when we were in the Super League. So that's Alan Murray or Quinny. And then, as usual, a call out for our sponsors. As we come into a sort of phased return to some kind of normality, whatever that looks like, please have a look out for the sponsors of Workington Town and support those businesses that have supported Town through this very, very difficult and unusual time. So again, thank you to Myers and Bowman's, our main sponsor, and everyone who sponsors either players or is on the shirt. So as we come out and we can get spend some of our quids, please have a look at our sponsors, because they've been absolutely brilliant with Workington Town over the last 8-9 weeks. Thank you to them. So today we've got a couple of legends, and Dec, who is a future legend, especially with his new haircut, cut by the council by the looks of it.
It's all right, that.
No, it's not so bad. It's the semi-Mohican. I don't know why. Actually, it is pretty bad, and I've got no hair. It's pretty bad. So coming from me,
I was going to go for you, just shave all the top there and leave a bit.
You man put that with a knife and fork.
So we've got Jamie Jones-Buchanan, absolute legend of the game. 20 years at Leeds, and probably one of the most articulate men in rugby league. So really looking forward to talking to Jamie. We've got ex-Workington Town coach Phil Veivers, and also State of Mind ambassador. I've seen Phil a couple of times now doing the State of Mind stuff, and they do some absolutely brilliant work, not only in rugby league, but in businesses as well. We've got our coach there, Chris Thorman, looking a little bit under the weather after a 6-hour Zoom call, plus Jameson's last night. We'll go into that in a little bit. And then we've got Dec, who's now feeling embarrassed about his hair, and so he should be. So Jamie, we're going to start with you. How are you coping during lockdown, first of all?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. The short answer is I'm really well. I'm thriving. And listen, I think the strap line from me has always been, it's not lost on me how difficult it is for a lot of people for a wide variety of reasons, a broad spectrum, from those who are suffering, having lost loved ones who are grieving, your thoughts and hearts goes out to them, right up to those people who are waking up every morning worried about the economy and where the next paycheck's going to come from. And even those who I've been having a conversation about my kids going back to school with my wife, we've got slightly different views. Ultimately, we'll come to some agreement and follow the rest of the country, but my happiness has always been found at home. It's like my Garden of Eden, and the people that make me the happiest are my wife and kids. So during this lockdown, try to see the positives of what is a difficult time. For me, it's been with my wife and kids in my favourite place day after day. So it's been a small picture of retirement, and I guess by the time I retire, and I do finally retire in the 60s, 70s, my kids will be replaced by grandkids, God willing. But I can't stress enough for me how fortunate and blessed I feel I have been during the lockdown and this global pandemic. So listen, I'm really good, thanks, and I'm sharpening that proverbial sword, and by that I mean, you know, everything that I need to prepare myself for what happens once we come out, because everybody's going to be like a cold spring. We're going to have to work really hard, particularly in rugby league, to get it back on track. We've all got big challenges ahead of us, and it's going to take a lot of selflessness to save the game and push it back in the right direction. But you know, this time is being used to make sure that I'm as fully prepared that I can be, to be a dad, to be a colleague, to be an assistant coach, to be somebody who tries to broadcast a little bit of rugby league content as well, so that when we're back at it and we're where we should be, you know, I'm as good as I can possibly be.
Awesome. We'll come back to you in a little while. I want to talk to you about sort of leadership and passion and faith and all of that other good stuff, and also a little bit about your acting as well. So we'll get onto that as well. So over to Phil. So Phil, just before lockdown, you were up in West Cumbria doing a few state of mind events. I attended one and caught up with you there. But then all of a sudden, you know, everything just sort of stopped almost overnight. How have you been coping sort of at home and, you know, not doing the state of mind stuff?
Yeah, it's a little bit weird, mate, really. Obviously everything shut down after that last gig we did up in Whitehaven at the Civic Hall. So a lot of our presentations have been postponed. They've been put back. So that's the big thing at the moment, you know, with Zoom playing an important part. I think, you know, we're going to be doing a lot of Zoom presentations to a lot of different organisations, I think, because this pandemic has obviously caused a lot of stress, a lot of mental health issues. You know, isolation is probably the biggest mental health issue at the moment. It really does play havoc with a lot of people's mental health, and you know, if we can get out there and give them a little bit of a toolkit that they can use to really assist themselves, you know, in these bleak times, I'm sure that they'll see that light at the end of the tunnel and they'll be able to come through the other side of it.
Bizarrely, I ended up writing a couple of poems during lockdown, and one of the things that struck me was, Chris is laughing there because we did one on the radio for town, and he didn't take the piss out of me at all, which much. But one of the things that struck me was, actually, I'm seeing my family more than I did before lockdown, although it's through my phone. And one of the things was, you know, actually, if we can continue with that, you know, they all actually live locally, but I'm actually seeing more of them. You know, we do a sort of nightly or every other night quiz, and we do a radio show, you know, so actually, you know, we've got to harness the technology, and you in particular, I suppose, in terms of state of mind. You normally travel the country, and that might be difficult for a while yet. So, you know, as you say, utilising that technology to help people who might be going through some tough times will be the way to go, maybe.
Yeah, no, most definitely. You know, people, you know, I've got a lady that cancelled or postponed from the Wrexham Council. She contacted wanting a Zoom for all her clients. So I think it will be the way forward. And I think it's not just about going out to present these things and get these messages out there. I think these the technology is just going to change the way the world's really run at this moment in time, and it's going to take quite a long period of time, and people just need to be able to just sustain how they reacted to it in the first place, and the technology will be there to benefit them.
Chris and Kat?
Don't mind Geordie.
No, never mind a Geordie. So how have you been this week?
Okay, guys. It's funny just chatting to Charlotte about you know, every week I try to do something a little bit different to obviously discuss with you and stuff. But I'm clutching a little bit. I've done my exercise, you know, as regularly as I can, but I've not really done anything different this week. I've not read any books or anything like that. I can't give any enlightened words and whatnot. But one thing we did yesterday evening was have a staff Zoom call, which Belts arranged, which was great. And you know, nothing will replace kind of sitting in the pub or having a crack and a coffee after training or whatnot. But yesterday really cheered us all up. It was myself and Gus, Velk, Sloaney, Nige and Jono. And I think we were scheduled to go from 8 till 9, and we ended up going into the small hours. A couple of drinks and a couple of shared stories, and Sloaney's mic wasn't working, which was unfortunate because I was hoping it would have been Belch's mic that wasn't working. But honestly, good crack. Just chatting about times gone by, and I've only been in town for a year now, which has flown by, but just enjoying chatting about some stuff that's going on. Obviously, Jimmy's doing his Slag Banks walk still. He's doing it twice on Friday, and he's raising money for town. And I suppose the other good news of this week as well is Phil and Beth have welcomed the little girl into the world. So we send our congratulations to them. Little Nancy was born. I think it was a week ago, but they've only publicly announced it today. So that's great news for them. And Phil's finally got a little girl, because I know he's had boys previously. So he's really grateful for that. And we send our best wishes and hope Beth's well as well. So that's pretty much me, mate. I've been thinking about what we can discuss, and if I'm honest, I kind of opened the floor to Jonesy and Phil, particularly because I've known. We'll talk a little bit about my background with the pair of them, but I've known Jonesy for as long as anybody in rugby league. We played under 14s, 15s Yorkshire, which not a lot of people know that. And I honestly find Jonesy one of the most fascinating guys in the sport. He's a bit of a philosopher, bit of an intellect. He's a bit of a mixture. He's not your typical rugby league person. And also Phil is genuinely one of rugby league's good guys. He's obviously with the stuff he does with State of Mind. And again, I've got a fair bit of history with Phil. Back Phil was assistant coach at the Giants. It was late 90s, early 2000s when we that was when our paths first crossed. And obviously, you stay in touch with good people, and Phil is one of the best blokes in rugby league that you'll meet. So looking forward to listening to these two, particularly this week.
Jeez. You give me some credit there, aren't you?
It's not what I say to him off camera, like.
And Charlotte keeping well?
Yeah, she's good actually, guys. We're halfway now. She's 21 weeks now, 21 weeks pregnant. So Charlotte is pretty much, touch wood, over the sickness, which has been a bit of a blight and a bit of a hindrance to her. But she's got a bit of an appetite back, and we've been out. We've obviously, with the lockdown guidelines relaxing a little bit, but we're obviously staying diligent, and we are showing plenty of common sense, which you need to interpret the government guidelines with a lot of common sense. And we are following through with them still, and obviously social distancing and all of that. But we have been out the house a little bit more than previously, and I think it's important, especially for her, to do a bit of exercise to get your heart rate up and stuff like that. So I'll generally do my workouts in the morning, and we'll go out for maybe a walk in the afternoon, and she's enjoyed that, so she's doing really well, thanks.
Okay, look to her. Dec, just checking his phone there. So, after your operation, just as the season started, how's the rehab going?
Yeah, it's fine. I had a 12-week consultation with a surgeon. I think it was Tuesday, so I'm free to return back playing as soon as we're back.
And so I saw you going up some steps.
Yeah, they were awful.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, Rivington, like by us. You just have to be stupid to go and do stuff like that, really.
Yeah, my legs were killing me.
Yeah, they're awful. My legs were killing.
So
like just blew up. Mad.
But you're free to
run up them. Yeah.
You're free to come back. So
yeah.
How are you doing in terms of your general fitness? Are you getting a bit fuller about the face there, can I see? Or is that just that bad haircut?
It's what?
Cheeky.
Are you getting a little bit fuller about the face, or is it just a bad haircut?
No, it must just be this haircut, you know. It's me. It's streamlined now, so it's I'll be faster when I come back.
So genuinely, who did cut it?
My brother cut it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Is he still alive?
Or is it
He's still alive? Yeah. I'll let him live this time. But if he does it again, he'll get a backhand.
All right. So Jamie, we were talking earlier just before we came on about your little room there, and just tell us a little bit about what's behind you on the wall.
Yeah, so it's my new little gym sheds where I do some of my training with my kids. My in-laws moved into an annex, and I had to convert this, and it's become a multitude of different environments that I put together. Anyway, I think life's a narrative. Human beings are the only animals on the planet that tells stories. That's what I always start with anyway. And obviously, pictures are great reminders of some of the journeys that we've been on as a group. So I'll use that one first because it's backwards, but as good as it gets, tells the story of Leeds Rhinos' journey really through what was become known as golden generation, golden decade that accumulated, I guess, winning treble in 2015. And you can watch that on the Amazon Prime. And just, I think the main reason for doing that was that, from the outside, it probably looked like a wonderful, all-blessed, all-superstar year. But actually, internally, there were a lot of challenges to overcome. And the difference between having nothing and everything can be the breadth and width of a hair at times. So if you haven't seen that, every time we stream it, I think we get about 12 pence. So get on it and make us a bit more money during lockdown. The other side, this side, playing the Joker. I did a little bit of theatre about 2-3 years ago. I'm on the board of Red Ladder Theatre Company. And the main reason for Red Ladder is to tell some of the stories of some of the big elephants within society, some of the issues that surround some of our communities, and using stage as a place to talk about it and try and affect some social change. So one project we've got going at the minute is called Home Baked, and Home Baked is a bakery at Anfield in Liverpool. Now, you can imagine Anfield, Magic Weekend, I think last year, surrounded by a lot of sort of terraced housing, the local community, and a lot of them got pulled down to make bigger and better things, but that, as we know, sometimes affects some of the people in the lower end of society, who are in poverty. And there was one particular bakery who refused to get pulled down, and it's still there. So the project that we've got going on at the minute is to tell the story through theatre and bring that community back together and try and engage Liverpool's foundation to do that. So using sport as a vehicle. Now, for me, Eddie Waring, this side, was obviously a big rugby league commentator who, for me, when I learned a lot about Eddie Waring, not least like the anniversary 1968 water splash final that we sort of celebrated a couple of years ago. I think when we look back at some of our rugby league history and heritage, there's some amazing characters that did some really amazing things that we can still learn from. Even when all seems to be going against us, like it was with Eddie Waring. In the end, a lot of Yorkshire people signed a petition in blood to get rid of him because he was playing himself. He was playing his own caricature in the third person and trying to create this northern monkey stereotype of us working class northerners that I'm sure we'll talk about the north pretty soon. And the last one was one called Leeds Lads, obviously being a local Leeds lad. That was a community play about the Battle of the Somme, which coincided with Leeds Rugby League's training ground being flooded on Boxing Day 2015. And you might remember we went through some real challenges, nearly got relegated the year after in 2016. But again, using an old story of what happened 100 years ago in a war where about 50,000 people got mowed down on the Somme in one day, and then crying about your gym being flooded and having to uproot a little bit and some of the hardships are going on. It just put it into perspective. So again, all these stories in some way remind me of the challenges that I've been through and some of the perseverance that I've built up to overcome them. So
playing for one club for 20 years,
yeah.
So obviously you're passionate about Leeds, where you're from. Is it Bramley?
Yeah.
How, in a game where, players fall out with other players fall out with the board, players fall out with coaches, how did you manage to stay at one club for 20 years?
Very similar way to how I've managed this lockdown. Through selflessness. If the world had 7.5 billion Jamie Jones-Buchanans on it, we wouldn't be in lockdown. It'd be very different. It'd look a lot different to what it is for a multitude of different reasons. But ultimately, the main one is I'm absolutely fine with what's going on because it serves the other 7.5 billion people on the planet, not me. So it's not about me. You know, the vulnerable people within society is my Caribbean grandma who's black, got 4 times more chance of dying had she get it than somebody who's white, plus she's in her 80s. Versus another grandma who's at the minute quite scared of some of the stats that she's heard. It's about them, it's not about me. So to answer your question on the sporting journey, there's sometimes, lots of times actually, throughout the course of that journey when things that haven't agreed with my mindset, my physical ability, the position that I play in, the role that I've got within the club or the team, hasn't always agreed with me. But being able to find a way to make it work and thinking less about myself and more about, well, actually, what's best for the team, what's best for the club, what's our ultimate role here? Is it to just win trophies, or is it to go on a journey here that shapes lives, hearts and minds of the people and the communities that surround us? You know, some of the work that I've done with Lee Jarnos Foundation is equally as gratifying as winning a grand final ring or a Challenge Cup medal. And now my boys, my legacy, right, now that I've retired, are growing up in Leeds and they're going to be affected and influenced by what we've been through. So I think it's just looking at yourself as a small, very small cog in a bigger wheel, and just asking yourself that selfless question, you know, despite all our differences, which is actually a strength, well, what can I do to keep this ship moving in that direction? So ultimately, it's got to be underpinned by some great values, a big mission statement, and everybody buying into that statement and using whatever gift, talent, or ability you've got to contribute to it and be congruent.
Yeah, I'll come back to you on passion and energy in a minute. Phil, in terms of your journey, so obviously, you know, a player there with, you know, a great history behind. So take us through a bit about your playing journey and then how you came to, you know, to state of mind and coaching as well.
Really, it was, I was playing over in Australia, in Brisbane, for a team called South. And at the time, St Helens came across and tried to sign Mal Meninga, and they tried to sign Gary Belcher at the same time. They wanted both of them to go together. I happened to be playing in the same side as them two boys, and they sent out Ray French, sent him out. It was a Lions tour, and he was out doing the BBC. So being an ex-Saints boy, they sent him over to watch us play one day, and then they came, after the game, he came in and he said to Mal, "Is everything okay? You coming across for the year?" He said, "Yeah, no worries." And he went to Gary Belcher, and Gary Belcher said, "Well, I don't really want to go for 12 months. I only want to go for 6 months." So he went back to Mal and spoke to the St Helens board, and he said to him, "You know, I watched a kid play here on the wing called Phil Veivers." He said he'd be an ample replacement for Gary Belcher. He said, "He's really a fullback. He's not a winger, and I know we're after a fullback." Even though the coach at the time, Billy Banyan, didn't even know that I was coming. So I ended up, I asked the coach at the time, it was my brother-in-law, Wayne Bennett. I said, "You know, I think it's worthwhile. And I go over there and do a year over there." So he said, "Well, yeah." He said, "You can come back and play then." And I said, "Okay, where I went." So that's how it came about that I got over here. I did the first year. In my first game, I walked into the changing room, and the coach said to me, he said, "Well, I'm going to not playing you." Which was Billy Banyan, and I said, "Can I have a word?" So we went in the back. I said, "I haven't travelled, you know, from one side of the world to the other to not be playing." He said, "Well, I didn't want you." I said, "Well, give us a chance, and I'll show you that everything will be okay." So he played me in the first game, and I didn't have a real class game, to be fair. I was steady away, and then we had a midweek game, and I think I took out the man of the match in the second game, and the rest is history. I went on to play 12 years there at St Helens, and 381 games later, I got transferred across to Huddersfield. So I started over there under Darryl Vandervelde in 96. And the reason I left there as well, because I was in the middle of a testimonial at St Helens, and I'd been to Wembley 3 times, and I'd lost 3 times. And in 96, we got to Wembley, and I'd played in every round leading up to it. And I played into the semi-finals, and I thought, you know, I'm going to hang around here, even though, you know, they're not picking me. I'm going to hang around. You never know. You might get your chance. And Bobby Goulding came up to me. He said, "Listen, you need to move on." He said, "Because the board have told Sean McRae not to pick you." And I said, "Well, all right." Well, I was 18th man in that Challenge Cup game, and I think that really sealed my signature for Huddersfield. On that day, I saw Darryl in the bar afterwards, and I went and played for Huddersfield the week after. And so 96, 97, I ended up being the captain of Huddersfield in 97, which was a privilege. And we got into Super League. We played Hull in a grand final at Old Trafford, which took us into Super League. And so that was in 97 and 98. Wow, Super League, what a difference, especially at my age. So I got into the pre-season. This is how I got into coaching, to be fair. I was in the off-season and I got a phone call, can you come across? We want you to be the assistant player coach. So I didn't really think about going into coaching. And so I went over and I sat in Les Coulter's office and they came in and they just said, well, listen, we got rid of the coaching staff, which I thought at the time was a bit of a shame because we just got into Super League and we've named Gary Schofield as player coach. And we want you to go as his assistant. And I said, oh, cool, yeah, right, away we go. Well, I was going to learn a lot that year, I know. Maybe not. I must admit, it was two blind people going into coaching and to make things work, and it didn't work. Honestly, it didn't work. So they got rid of Scully halfway through the year, and I was still playing at the time, and they asked me to retire and just take up the caretaker's role. So I took up the caretaker's role for that year, and the following year they brought in Mel Riley, and then the year after that we merged with Sheffield. This is where I met up with Spoogie. And I was with John Keir. They got rid of the coaching staff from Huddersfield, but they sort of had to mix and match. So they took me on as an assistant with JK being the head coach. And then we started another tough year, didn't we, Spook?
Sure did.
Yeah. And they got rid of John. And again, I went into caretaker mode again, myself and Jeff Hardy. And we just changed a few things and we had a bit of a play about and just got the boys to enjoy their footy. And then after that, it was Tony Smith that came in after that. So, and I was on my way then. So I went in, I was sat out for a bit. And then I signed to go as assistant coach. Well, to be fair, I went back playing. I hadn't finished playing on my terms because I was asked to retire. So I started playing with John Bentley, playing rugby union up at Cleckheaton. And one of my best mates, Paul Lachlan, was playing at Swinton. And I just said to Lockers, I said, can you ask Mike Gregory? He was coach at the time, God rest his soul. I said, does he want an assistant coach? And the message came back, says, well, I don't want an assistant coach, but I could do with a 13. So I thought, oh, well, I'll finish my playing career on my terms. So I went back then and I was playing union on the Saturday and I was playing for Swinton on the Sunday. So it was quite adventures. And then I got into coaching the year after. Halfway through that year, they sacked Tony Humphries at Swinton, and Tony Barrow, who was the chief executive there, asked me to come back halfway through the year, and I had a pretty good year off the back end of that. Went across as an assistant coach with over at Lee, and I don't even think I finished a week in training before I signed to be assistant coach up at Bradford. I had 3.5 great years at Bradford, many a game against JJB up there. We had a lot of good results against those guys. 2003 was special. You know, we did the treble in 2003. 2004, they come back and beat us in the grand final. And then 2005, we came in and did another number on them. As such, that
might be that one. I think it's that one that I was talking about.
Might have been the cup here.
2004.
And then I left. I got Nobby went across to Wigan. I did another 3.5 years over at Wigan. Left Wigan and ended up at Salford for another 2.5 years, and then I went up to Workington for 3 years. But I got involved through state. That was how I got involved in playing and to get over here, and how I got into coaching. And then in 2013 with State of Mind, they asked me to do a presentation on the stresses of moving country, from moving from one side of the world to the other. And I hadn't had a lot going on in my life then, but and then as it progressed over the years, I sort of suffered with my own mental health through losing my job on a couple of occasions. I sort of had a lot of depression with that, and I ended up it became a story that I could use with State of Mind, and that's where I'm at with it at the moment. You know, it's sort of pretty passionate about mental health. You know, I do a lot of work with State of Mind, and we do a lot of work elsewhere too by ourselves. You know, doing some talks and what have you. So we go around just talking about mental health awareness and giving the guys a bit of a toolkit to say, hey, listen, you know, this is when you got to do something about things, and really do need to talk about things, and we just give them that little kit bag with a little bit of kit in it that can help them if they're struggling.
Okay, I'm going to jump to Dec. So, Dec, you know, as a young player, sort of starting out, are you 21 now?
Yeah, 21.
21. So in terms of this sort of mental health and you know what Phil's been talking about there, well, you know, you've got a lot of banter in the dressing room, as we all know. You know, but do you feel the lads can talk about things like mental health and the need? You know, if they're not feeling so great, are they okay to talk? Or you know, is there still sort of a bit of a barrier there?
No, well, I know that I'd rather someone get something off the chest speaking to me than like making themselves tip over the edge or whatever, like driving himself into the ground, just feeling so bad, like with the thoughts. I'd rather sit there and listen to what they've got to say. But like you said, there probably is some sort of barrier there, because I don't think any, like the sport we're in, like some lads there who think it's not big and it's not hard, you know, to be going speaking about the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of just like gaining trust. It's sort of about gaining trust, like with the lads, you know, like that sort of stuff where they can come and chat to you, you know, about actually how they're feeling and why they're feeling that. So you've got to build stuff up there, I think.
Because the other thing is as well, and you travel up from Wigan to training and so on. You know, you spend a lot of quality time with, you know, a small group of players, particularly when you're traveling.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, it's a good crew as well to be travelling up with. You know, I think if anyone in the car is feeling like a bit shitty or whatever, that we'll definitely speak to each other.
So, Chris, Phil was talking there, and it was sort of a winding route to where he's at now. When you're starting off playing, and I'm going to ask the same to JJB, you know, is there an element of planning, or is, you know, in rugby league just, you know, what comes next, or, you know, does it just depend on circumstance? Because some of the things that Phil was talking about there, you know, conversation, you know, after a game, and your life changes almost.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. You know, if you work hard enough, you can achieve anything you want to in your life, whether it's to be a professional rugby player, to be an astronaut, to be a brain surgeon, or whatever you want to go into. You know, you've got to have a focus. And for me, I guarantee Jonesy will be the same. For me, it's all I ever wanted to do. You know, we spoke about going into the careers office at school when you're 15, going on 16, and you have to kind of make that first step into the big wide world. And you know, I was fairly good academically. I got good GCSE results, but I was adamant that I was going to be a rugby league player from the day I picked up a ball. I just knew that's what I wanted to do, and I knew that I was going to do it, guys. You know, when you have when you're successful in your chosen career, you have to have that mindset. You have to have that single-mindedness and confidence and all of that. And I suppose once you do make it, that's when the selflessness comes in that Jonesy's spoken about too. You know, there's no better trait in a team sport than to be selfless, and it quite often doesn't get as noticed by the fans and the critics. But I tell you what, your teammates realise it, and you know that's probably why Jonesy's name would be the first on the team sheet that leads Rhinos, you know, going on 20 years, you know, because of that selflessness. And from a coaching point of view, again, that's a trait. You know, you look at maybe five traits of a player, and selflessness will be near to the top pretty much every time. So for me, you know, it's all I ever wanted to do, guys. It's I'll be really fortunate to have a really interesting journey through the sport, you know, for a skinny kid from Wall's End, Tyne Wear, you know, to go to the NRL, to play Super League, to represent my country, to you know, playing Challenge Cup finals and stuff like that. You know, I've been really, really fortunate. And then again, to go into coaching, you know, a lot of players make the mistake that they just assume because they've been in the sport their whole adult life that they're just going to walk into a coaching role. But unfortunately, there aren't that many full-time jobs around, and I suppose that's why I retired relatively early, early 30s, as opposed to Jonesy, who went into his late 30s. I kind of I got the opportunity to go to Huddersfield as an assistant coach and an academy coach, and I honestly just believe that you never know when those opportunities might present themselves again. So I bit the bullet, and I went and I joined Paul Anderson, and I had some 6-7 years at Huddersfield, which was some of the best times of my life. Really enjoyed going back to Huddersfield, which is pretty much like my second home anyway. I had 2 good stints as a player there, and obviously the journey I'm on right now with Workington Town, signed a 3-year deal, and that doing kind of needing to branch out and needing to make a name for myself in the coaching world, and doing it at Workington Town still really excites me, and I'm really excited about the future with the club. And really grateful for the opportunity, because there are some fantastic people in rugby league, but none more so than in Workington.
Okay, so JJB, a question from our club chaplain, Reverend Ian Jones, and they're saying, how do you justify your big hits in relation to your Christian faith?
I never had any big hits, so I've got away with it. No, it's a great question, and it's one that I laugh about all the time when I go do testimonies. So I'm a Christian, and my Christian faith is at the root and the foundation of everything. Just going back on the question of what do you look forward to when you retire? Well, we don't always know what we want next, but I do trust that God's got a plan for me, and as long as I keep that faith and keep pushing in that direction, looking to God for answers, then it will be fruitful. We're on this planet a very short period of time. In the context of eternity, it's just a flash in a pan. And it's about building treasure in heaven rather than building mothballed treasures up here on earth that waste away and they're entropic. But to answer your question, it's really funny. I went to a church in Leyland, which I think is about north-east of Wigan. I think it's not far from Wigan.
It's not far from me.
Yeah. Well, it were full of Wigan fans, and we'd played them that month, and I think I'd scored a try and we beat them, so I had like the upper hand on banter. But I did get pulled up, and it was on Sky. I got pulled up for an eye shot, and one of the congregation says to me, how do you reconcile some of them bigots? And you took that kid's head clean off his shoulders. I can't remember what it was. And I said to him, mate, I've been told through the Bible it's better to give than receive, and that's how I've landed it. But I think it all comes down to intent, doesn't it? I think when we go out and play rugby, we all cross them white lines within the boundaries of the rules of the game. And we all agree to go play as well as we can, and that's what we're prepared for. From in some cases, being as young as 4-year-old to give your best, and there's no intent to go out there and name somebody. But the question is, I'm going to try and hit you as hard as I can. You're going to try and hit me as hard as you can, and let's keep doing that and see who's going to give up the first or give in to fatigue. And at the end of the game, as we all know, whether you've got faith or not, we all shake hands and we're best mates and we bend over backwards for each other. So it all comes down to intent rather than the action. And that's how I ought to tell myself anyway.
Okay. So have you ever been sent off?
No, I've been sin-binned twice. I got sin-binned against Cass in 2006. It was the biggest hitter I've ever played against, funnily enough, called Adam Fayoso. I don't know if you remember, he played it back row, I think, for Cass. Tongan lad, played at Newcastle. And I ran at him, and he absolutely mullered me off a kick-off. This was in 06. I was 92 kgs, small. I was playing front row, and I was quick and elusive, but he mullered me. And I thought, wow. I just remember seeing Sky. We scored a few more sets later, kicks off again, and I thought, he's having it. I'm running straight at him. And he smashed me again, exactly the same. And I'm laying on my back like that, looking. It's one of them where the shock, boom, and you're laying up at blue sky. And I was fuming, so I got up and leaned into him, tried to headbutt him, and then he just battered me, went bam, bam, bam. And I just cut to bits. We both got sin-binned. And then third time, later on the pitch later on, I just thought, sack this, I'm running over there, mate. To avoid him, gone out of his way. But that's the only time I've ever been sin-binned. I don't think I've ever been sent off, by God's grace, no.
And how did you start with rugby AM?
Yeah, so As I've mentioned, I've always enjoyed telling stories, and rugby league people, without doubt, there's not working class northerners. So the stereotype says I've got some of the best, most down to earth, transcendent stories in the world for me. And I met Alex Simmons in about 2012. He's from Leeds, so I'd heard of him, but he lived a completely different lifestyle than me. He was a DJ and found himself in some environments that are incongruent to being a professional sportsman. But needless to say, he invited me onto his radio station that he started up in his garage back in 2012 called Mad Monday, and it was on All Star FM, a digital radio station that he started up himself. And somebody come and said, we can make this into like a TV magazine show. And long story short, it ended up on Free Sports, but we had no idea about broadcasting and the costs, and we were really lucky that we got a little bit of funding to maintain that. It lasted about 6 shows, and then we couldn't afford to do it anymore. And then the local TV channels, Estuary, Bay TV, and the Made Network come in, and we could basically make it ourselves, a bit like YouTube-esque, and go film it. So I got a digital recorder and a DSLR, and we went round and we got to events and community games and interview players, and by the good grace of people in rugby league, everybody was always willing to give us their time and energy and tell some great stories. And then we broadcast that, and then about 18 months ago, 2 years, we went back on Free Sports, on which is a partner channel of Premier, and it's just grown. It's grown ever since. We've got our own videographers. We've got, I think, 4 full-time staff. And we don't make any money, or we haven't done yet. Not that that hasn't been consumed by other costs. But we feel like we're giving back to the game and trying our best to showcase the personalities within rugby league and try and do a service to a game that has given me everything. Everything that I am now as a 38-year-old ex-professional rugby league player is attributed to the good grace of the people in rugby league who've made the game what it is and given me an opportunity to fulfil some of my potential, and it's time to give back.
We had Wagger on a couple of weeks, and I think Alex is coming on next week. So how do you've got a lot of energy, but you're quite zen compared to Wagger.
He's just not wired up right, that kid.
Well, there's bound to be some sparks in the studio, and you guys are there because it's just crazy times.
We all just follow Wagger, and we just wind him up and then just let him go, and he goes and entertains. And it's brilliant, we've had a few letters from Ofcom, funnily enough, about some of his antics. But the working class people, we love it. Rugby league people love it. And I love it. And one of the things, when he's running around Catalan, chasing bulls and trying to avoid them and getting run over and smashing all our kit to bits, and we're getting letters from animal rights people. And there's some other, I probably can't repeat on here, but I think it was Halifax sang their song after a win. And it had something to do with Luke Campbell doing something. Anyway, we got pulled for that, and Wagger's instigating it. But end of the day, it just appeals to an audience and shows what these rugby league boys are like. And what's really funny is whenever I go anywhere, people will say, especially people who are non-Leeds, they might recognise me from Rugby. They'll go, "Oh, where's Wagger? Where is he? Is he really like that in real life? Is he really like that?" And I think somebody's mentioned about Butlins. It would be Butlins this weekend. 5,000 kids down at Butlins in Skegness having a wonderful time. And Wagger will be down there winding all kids up, having fun. And people come up to me and say, "He really is like that, isn't he? He's like that all the time." So yeah, mate, it's brilliant. And I think rugby league should be pushing. Imagine Wagger in Jungle. Imagine if he went on ITV on the Jungle or something like that, or some sort of celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or Big Brother. It'd be unbelievable. And I just think we've got some great personalities we need to show off.
Absolutely. So, Phil, you talked there about your sort of journey, but 3 seasons at Workington Town. One of the questions that I've been asked is obviously. Thoughts often go to Workington Whitehaven derbies, and one of the questions I've been asked is, do you, I think it was 2015, 18-0 down against Whitehaven, and we came back and beat Whitehaven 26-20, I think. I think Sky are going to show it at the end of this month. What were your memories of that day, and what did you say to the players at halftime, if you can repeat it?
The memories of that day was obviously celebrating afterwards, I suppose. It's always nice beating Whitehaven. Probably the first year I was there when we beat them 5 times was pretty special in the 1 year. And but that day, I ripped some paint off the wall that day. they had the kitchen sink whacked around their ears, and they had everything. I was calling them cowards and everything. And anything I could grab hold of to try and motivate, I was into them. Just trying to turn it around. And I had an issue with our ball players at the time, and they weren't getting us around the park in the right areas. So I just addressed them. And I just got the forward pack. I just said to these, the Whitehaven were having a laugh in the other room about them, but they just weren't aiming up. And I think a few of them took it personal. It is personal. A derby's pretty personal. It doesn't matter whether it's Bradford Leeds, whether it's Saints Wigan, whether it's Whitehaven Workington. A derby's a derby, and at the end of the day, they want to kill each other. Whether it be the fans, whether it be the directors, whether it be the players, whether it be the coaches, it's just a lot of hatred in there. And I think they took it a bit personal going out there in the second half. And the small things was the last thing before I went out the door. I just said, if you go out there and score that first try, you give yourself a chance because you've shown yourself that you can score a try. I said, and if you score that second try pretty quickly after that, I said, there's going to be a few twitchy bums in the other room. I said, and they'll come up with the errors after that. And that's exactly how it panned out, really, to be fair. So, but it was a great end to the game, right at the back end of the game. And little tip on, I think, from it was Jack Murphy scored the try, wasn't it? Yeah, so got over the line and scored, and then it was celebration times down on Blackpool. Jeez, didn't the boys have some fun?
So, Dec, how many derbies have you played in now?
I think I've only played one,
And
what do you mean, like Worky Whitehaven?
The only derby there is, mate. The only derby there is.
I didn't know if you meant the Worky Whitehaven or how many I've put it in. Whatever, yeah. I've only played against Whitehaven once last year. We drew.
We drew, didn't we?
Yeah, we drew.
You would have done Wigan Saints too, Dec, would you? In the reserve.
Yeah.
They're just as bad.
Yeah, they're bad. Even like when I was playing amateur, like down at Pat's, when you play against Rosebridge or Jude's, they're exactly the same.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
They're sometimes worse than when you're playing like in like a professional game, like with the amateur ones. Like there's some proper hatred there between them.
Oh, proper.
So I've got a question from Jamie Doran for you, Phil. Jammer says, do you miss him?
Do I miss him? Oh, he's a great kid, isn't he? Oh, Jesus. Do I miss him? Yeah, playing for St. Bees down at Twickenham. Yeah, no, can I play, Phil? Can I play?
Yeah.
No, you can't. You're not insured.
I've had that, Phil. I've had that from him.
Have you? No, he's a good kid. He just had his heart in the wrong place a couple of times.
Brilliant. I've got a question, just a comment. So, Grandad Gary. So this is my little grandson, Harry, born 3 weeks ago. Craig, who lives with my daughter. They're watching us, and he's saying he's just whispered up the town in his ear. I think Craig might be throwing a few porkies there because there's only 3 weeks, but hopefully we'll get him to say that in the future. So, in terms of Chris, in terms of the sort of derbies that you've been involved with, obviously the crowds are lower at Workington Whitehaven, but the passion, when you were playing for Huddersfield, and when which are the best derbies that you've been involved with?
I think I've answered this a couple of times, guys. I was privileged to play in the Hull derby too, and that was pretty scary. It's it's the only city in the country that has 2 rugby league teams, and 2 very well supported rugby league teams. When rugby league is the #1 sport on Humberside and in Hull, and whether you're born on the east side or the west side, you know what team you're going to follow. And that was at the KC Stadium. It was bouncing too. It was close to 20,000 people there. So that was that was almost a life's ambition to play in one of the top rugby league derbies. Huddersfield, we didn't really have a derby, to be honest. When we played at Magic, the Super League, the RFL would try and pair us up with a rival team, and like Jonesy would have played against Bradford plenty of times, and like the Wigan Saints derby and stuff like that. But we always used to get put up against Wakefield, and it was almost a bit of a fake derby, to be honest. it didn't have the
Salford a lot of the time too.
Yeah, we did mate. Because I suppose
who's Huddersfield's derby?
Well, we don't really. It's Halifax, if anybody, really, just over the other side of the M62. So we used to play in pre-season. We used to play Halifax in our kind of last warm-up trial game, and that was always
game, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a specific name for it, Phil, and I can't remember what it was called. Is it the Infirmary Cup?
I think that's what it's called now, but it was named after an ex-player, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, mate. But people forget Halifax had some early success in the Super League. Halifax were a decent team, made the playoffs a few times, and were probably better than Huddersfield for a long part of Super League. And whenever we played them, there was no love lost. And I think when Huddersfield go back now, Halifax have got a bit of a chip on their shoulder because they see Huddersfield being fairly successful in the Super League, and they're in the Championship. It would be great to see them back in Super League, and I suppose we're going to watch this space, aren't we, and see what happens with the return of Super League. There's been the licensing process spoken about again, and it being a franchise, and reading a bit on Twitter, and I shouldn't read too much on Twitter because half of it is absolute nonsense. But people creating their own Super League and Championship, taking it to two leagues again, and people speaking about those mergers again, which Phil being part of one, and in hindsight, and people think that they could work, but in theory, theoretically, they're just not for our sport, and unfortunately, but it would make sense, from a financial viewpoint and stuff like that. But there's nothing queer as folk, and there's nothing as queer as a rugby league fan, and fickle as a rugby league fan. So just been interested in reading and kind of watching that, and it'll be interesting to see the progress that Super League makes, hopefully in the next couple of months.
Couple of questions. Question for Gil: what is your favourite memory at town?
I got a bad one. We were playing London at home, and we were 3 points. We were 4 points down, and Jared Sabat kicked a field goal, and I broke my toe. I was in the box. I kicked the wall and broke my toe. And he's coming back. He's like, yeah. Don't worry about it. Anyway, I had a word with him after the game. I said, "Why are you kicking a field goal when we're 4 points down?" He said, "I thought we were level." I went,
Wow.
He's me halfback.
Wow.
That was a good one. I remember that one really well.
At least he was honest.
Going off, beheaded him. To be fair, Jason Mossop, his return after that, when he said he thought we'd draw him, was he said, I kicked the field goal because I know if we're going to score the next try, we're going to win by 1 point. And we actually kicked off. We went down the other end. Jason Mossop did score, but the referee said he was held up. But so he would have got it right, but that was his out clause anyway. So never forgot him. But I suppose the biggest memory is obviously your supporters are great up there, and I got a really good rapport with a lot of the fans that were up there, and I got on really well with them, even though they sang a stupid song about me, but I can't even remember it now. But and speaking to them, and when you used to go out and have a couple of beers in town and that, especially after winning a derby, it was they're a different breed, and they really enjoy their footy up there.
Question for JJB from Robert Kirkbride: if you could have your time in rugby again, would you change anything?
There's probably three points to this really quickly. When I look back at my career, there's obviously things that you regret, mistakes that you made, or errors that came about through bad practice, and many of them I'd like to change again. But without having those errors, I would never have become the person that I am. Life's all about learning, and I've already said I'm very grateful to have become because of rugby league and the learning opportunities that it gave me. So to change them would alter the outcome. That has grown and inevitably ended up with me who I am. Still got loads to learn, but some real specific ones. If there were things that I think I could change without affecting the outcome, one of them, and I always talk to kids, it's great to see the science that goes into the game now is the way that kids train, the way that they lift weights, and how they focus more on technique and doing it properly rather than how much weight they can pile on. For me as a young kid, I was always really industrious because I was never the biggest, strongest, fastest, or more skillful by any means. I was just I was one of those grafters. They're distinctly good at being average for long periods of time. And when I look at myself now, I'm 38 and I should be still in some good physical nick, but the arthritic joints, the fingers, the bulging discs in the back, some of which have come about because I didn't do the right technique. It was all about blood and thunder. So that's one. And the last thing, probably the most important thing that I learned at the back end of my career was this belief that I thought that it was all about the culture that we had through this golden decade that brought about the success. And whilst that was true for that group of people, you can't just lift up a culture and whack it on top of a new generation. And, I was guilty when Jack Walker and Mikołaj Aledzki and Cameron Smith were all coming through and new players like Richie Myler were coming in. I was guilty of saying, well, that's what Kev Sinfield would have said, or that's how Jamie Peacock used to do it, or this is what Danny Maguire would come up with, and thinking that this culture and environment we had could be replicated on this new group of people. Now, there are some virtues and some constants within success that stay constant, and you've got to uphold those values, as I mentioned earlier. But actually, a new group of people's got to bring something different. They've got to own it. They've got to believe it. Otherwise, they'll never manifest it. Them latter years, when I look back, I wasn't at my best physically from probably 16. Won a grand final in 17, which was awesome. 18 and 19 physically was just really, really difficult. And learned a lot about replicating cultures onto new generations of people and what that takes.
Okay, and we've got something from Eddie Walker. You mentioned it earlier about the Rhinos Challenge. A shout out for his son Jacob. He's a Steaton Ranger, absolutely loves his rugby league, and they're gutted not to be with you at the Rhinos Challenge. So hopefully next year, he says.
Definitely, okay. Yeah, it's a great event. If you've not been, I'm sure you have. If you haven't been, get yourself down there. It's outstanding.
Yeah. So Dec, you're due to come back as soon as we've got any kind of rugby going. At the start of the season, you were absolutely raring to go. You tried to get sort of rehab back in, but had to have an operation. How are you sort of managing to keep your head straight, prior to coming back?
Well, I've been doing bits and bobs of running and stuff. But I got a new bike as well, so I've just been jumping on that, just going on big rides. I find when you go out on bike, it's not as boring as running on the road. And I live right by the canal as well, so I just jump on there and get to anywhere really. Leeds Liverpool Canal, I'll end up in Leeds next.
Don't go that far. So,
no, I won't go that far.
We've got
won't come back.
Don't come back. So we've got Jamie, 411 games for Leeds, 7 Super League Grand Finals, 3 World Cup Challenges, 3 League Leaders Shields, Challenge Cup Final, played for England and Great Britain. What's your favourite memory? And what's your...
First one's always pretty special. And first one, 2004.
Why would you remember that?
Not just because Phil's there. But it was the first time that Leeds had won the championship in my lifetime. So I grew up supporting Leeds, and I still am a Leeds supporter. Doing number through and through. So I stood in stands and watched them lose it at Wembley and all sorts. Having great teams with Scully and Ellery and Kevin Iron and the rest of it, but they always seem to finish second at Wigan. So when we won it in 2004, it was the first time. So first time's always pretty special. And then 7, 8, and 9, 3 in a row. That was amazing again against St Helens. I don't know how, because that was an amazing. That St Helens team was the best team, even including NRL teams that I'd played against in World Cup Challenge. That was the best team I'd ever played against. But we always seemed to have it on them in the grand finals. So that was good. And then we became the first team to lose 3 in a row at Wembley in 10, 11, 12. And I always, especially at the kids, I always talk about the adversity without doubt being the biggest factor in success. The way that you deal with it and overcome it is massive. And that allowed us to win it twice from 5th in 11 and 12. So you see how each journey or each package starts to build a bit of a story. And then the treble in 2015, which was in one way bittersweet because I'm a Leeds fan, so we won the treble. That's the best thing ever, isn't it? but I tore my quad off my knee in the semi of the Challenge Cup, and I missed all 3 finals. So as a fan, best thing in the world. As a player, it was obviously horrendous, but I won't change a thing because it was the most important moment in Leeds 122-year history. And then you get JP, Sinfield and Luluai all retired at the same time, and it's like, that's it now, and you've got Magsy left, you've got JJB and Rob Burrow, Carl Ablett and a couple more. They've gone now, haven't they? They've finished, they've passed it. And to win it in 17 against an unbelievable cast who were killing everybody, without those players, when we were supposedly past it, having been beat by Cass 8 times on trot, that was like the biggest, like, get that down here ever. So each one has a special memory, but they all accumulate to forge one sort of experience that we ultimately learn from.
Okay, Phil, we've come up to our hour now. So, in terms of state of mind, how can people access the information from State of Mind? Through the website?
Yeah, you can get it through the website. The State of Mind has a www.stateofmindsport.org. If you get on there, and you can organise Zoom meetings with the presenters that we've got on there. But the big message at the moment is just everyone that may be struggling, what have you. We've all spoke about talking to someone about it. Everyone has a friend. You've got a partner. Get on the phone to someone if you think that they're struggling. And the other thing is with this lockdown, you tend to not get into a routine. So get into a routine, try something new, read a book. And if you're like me, I don't really like watching the news because it tends to be all negative. And if you tend to be in front of the telly or listening to everything that's happening in the pandemic, you're just going to get a load of negatives, and a lot of people catastrophize things and really puts them in a bad place. So if you want to watch it, watch the government hour that they have on at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock to see what's going on and get back into your routine. But that's the way to deal with things.
Okay. Well, really appreciate you coming on today. Great to see you. Hope to see you again to West Cumbria in the not too distant future. Chris, as we come to the end, because Jamie, we're going to do a little bit of a West Cumbrian quiz for you, so we're going to finish on that. So, Chris, message for fans and people out there?
Yeah, we really appreciate your support. Keep buying those virtual pints because with no revenue from match day and whatnot, the club shop, it really does help the club. So click on that link and get those virtual pints down, and the more the merrier. I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you soon. And just the last thing from me, guys, I learned that unfortunately Kevin Lever passed away, and terminally ill with cancer, and it took a grip of him, and unfortunately I learned that he passed away. I got a couple of messages and a phone call this morning, so I just want to wish Kevin's family all the very best, and I send my best wishes and my love and prayers to them at this really, what I would imagine is a really tough time. So that's just the last thing I wanted to say today. Just all the best to Kevin Lever and his family and his close friends.
Echo here, absolutely. Here. Dec, final message from down there in Wigan.
Just everything what Chris said. I think he got it nailed on there. Hope everyone stays safe. And just keep doing what they can do to keep themselves and, more importantly, their families safe and well. Keep washing your hands.
Nice one. Appreciate it, Dec. Okay, JJB. Declan is absolutely terrible at this and doesn't believe the thing called the West Indian accent. So we've got a few words.
I love this.
We've got a few words. Loup.
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 Is it something you eat? I don't know. No idea.
Jump.
Right.
Jump over the outdoor fence.
I once went to Whitehaven. I got lost and I pulled up and I said to this guy and I asked him directions, and he went, "Oh, you go there, and then go down Lonning about half a mile." And I'm looking, thinking, what on earth's a Lonning? and it ended up being like a ginnel stroke mud track or something like that. But go on, keep going. I was hoping that might be in there, but go on.
We've
What's a
yam.
lunning?
Yeah, what's a lunning? Yeah. A yam.
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 Oh, I know that one. Is it a sandwich?
A yam sandwich? No, that's home. I've gone yam. I'm going home.
And yam.
Sounds like it'd be a good
Yam.
sandwich, that though.
Yam. Yeah. It'd be a good sandwich, wouldn't it? Yummy. You
Yeah.
yam that.
Got some
Divant
yam.
Joe that.
Pardon?
Divant Joe that.
Different Joe that.
Divant.
I didn't know.
Don't do that. Divant is don't.
Different flipping.
Joe that.
Wow. Smuggy, being on the other side of the northeast, is it can you sort of like make it like even though you might not talk it, understand it?
Yeah, kind of, mate. It's like studying a foreign language. You know, you're better at kind of understanding and listening than actually speaking it.
Yeah.
Mate, I've done this a bit, and I pissed all over Dec because he was rubbish. But I did. There's still a few Jonesy that I had absolutely that went right over my head. But I can understand the majority of it now. I've got to say.
Okay. Kiak.
Cake.
Correct. So that's one. You've got one.
Yes.
Frey.
Frey.
Yeah.
It's when you're all fighting and carrying on in it outside a nightclub. Frey.
Where you Frey?
Where are you from? Is it from?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Clarty.
Pardon?
Clarty.
Clarty. Miserable. I don't know.
Dirty.
Yeah.
Ooh, Clark. Yeah.
Flate.
Flate.
Flait. Flate. I was read flate.
Tired.
Scared.
Scared.
Tea cake or balm?
Oh, it's neither, mate. It's a bread cake.
Dec's balm, I think.
Yeah.
If I had to choose one, I'd say tea cake, but it was bread cake down here.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Dec thinks that currency.
What's a balm? What's a balm? It's like that's something you put on your head.
No, it's
Moisturiser.
And finally, Jam Eater, Whitehaven or Workington?
It's got to be. It's got to be Whitehaven, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's got to be. Yeah.
So
Nom,
on
nom, nom, nom.
JJB, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for taking the time today. You know, it is genuinely appreciated. As we reach out to the Workington Town fans, having you guys on is really important, and we do appreciate you taking time. Phil,
Anytime.
thank you. Yeah, great to see you. Haircut is absolutely appalling, but you know it will grow out. Give it a few days.
Just kick a man when he's down.
Chris, love to Charlotte, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Cheers,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.